On this episode of Exactly How, we're going to show you how to invest in a unique type of distressed commercial asset. We're going to show you how to contact and find the best deals using a proprietary software, and you're going to learn a unique way to invest in real estate on this episode of Exactly How.
You're listening to the Exactly How podcast, where you'll hear the underground, closely guarded wealth building secrets of successful people around the globe. Discover exactly how to improve your mental, physical, and financial health. Feel better, make more money, live, give, and prosper in today's exciting, fast-paced world filled with opportunity for those who know exactly how.
Welcome, everyone, to the Connected Investors podcast and YouTube show, Exactly How. During this episode, you're going to discover a very unique way to invest in distressed commercial real estate. For those of you who are new, my name is Ross Hamilton, today's host and CEO of ConnectedInvestors.com. Today, we have the privilege to learn from a woman who has been inducted into the Hall of Fame of Commercial Real Estate Investing Women, CRE Women. Huge accomplishment. Prior to her career as an investor in commercial real estate for over 35 years, she ran a lot of the large servicing shops like Prudential Servicing. That all changed in 2004 when it became very clear that someone needed to start a business where they helped commercial real estate investors navigate CMBS loans. She decided in 2005 that she was going to be that person and started a advocacy space there. I would describe our guest as an optimistic powerhouse. Her name is Amy Hambley, and today she is going to explain exactly how to invest in distressed commercial real estate. Thank you so very much for taking time out of your schedule to speak with us.
Thank you. Nice to have you. Nice to be here.
And for anyone who's listening, you need to jump over to YouTube because you can see different things. I noticed there's a lot of files behind you, Ann. What are those?
Yeah, those are all deals I'm working on. So I got a few more on my desk that you don't see, but yeah, lots of files.
Active deals in the pipeline. I love it. Before we jump into exactly how to invest in distressed commercial real estate, you contribute a lot of your success to asking questions. Why do you think that's played such a big role in your success?
Because there's always a ton of things we don't know, whether we like to admit it or not. And I was never, ever afraid early in my career to, ask the questions, even though it might sound silly or someone might take it the wrong way. But that's the only way you really learn. So if you kind of fake like you know and don't ask questions, and you never really get to understand something. So I attribute that to my success. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. When I first started investing in real estate, I was about 19 or 20 years old. So I asked so many questions. I didn't have there was no shame. I didn't feel like I should know anything. And there's some great books about the power of high quality questions. So that's a really unique answer and something that you guys can learn from that are on the line here. So what makes the Exactly How Financial Freedom podcast unique is every show comes with a detailed action plan in the notes. So if you're driving and listening to this, don't worry about writing down notes. You can find everything we cover at exactlyhow.com. In addition, you can throw your name in the hat to win a $3,000 software that helps anyone find properties for pennies on the dollar. As a matter of fact, if you're watching this live, you can go to exactlyhow.com right now, throw your name into the hat, and you might be the lucky winner. So in just a few moments, we're going to announce that winner. But before we do, Ann, can you define some of these acronyms that we've used here? I like to break this down to a really simple level. I'm actually going to talk about servicing first. You used to run a lot of servicing shops. What does a servicing shop mean?
Mm-hmm. That's a super key question, and a lot of people don't know that in the industry. So when everybody knows when you fund a loan, there's a tremendous amount of loan documents that get written, that you sign at origination. And bottom line for servicing is you have to do everything that's in those documents for the next 10 years. So that whatever it requires in there, that's what a servicer does. So that's the simplest way to word it.
So is servicing collecting the money? Is that like the main role of a servicer? One of the very primary roles, of course, is collecting money and knowing where to send it, and collecting documents and data and watching the property performance and all that kind of stuff. That's right. And for everyone who's listening, we have a great podcast in the archive about being a private lender. And the individual talks a lot about servicing and servicing companies. So now you're seeing behind the curtain of the servicing side of the industry as well, which is why Exactly How is a really unique show for you. So can you explain the acronym CMBS?
Yes. I'll explain it, and then I'll tell you what it means, and I'll also explain it. So
Okay.
it's commercial mortgage-backed security. So that didn't help anybody, right? So what that really means is if you're a borrower, you own a commercial property, you buy the property, you get a new loan on it, and the loan is funded, right? What happens in CMBS is your lender that you originally worked with to get the loan is now gone. And your loan is now bought by a bunch of bondholders on Wall Street. So those shows, The Wolf of Wall Street, The Big Short, that's all CMBS. And what it means for an owner or an investor in distressed commercial real estate is that once you're trying to find the lender, in air quotes, you find that it's a whole bunch of bondholders on Wall Street. So there's nobody really to talk to. And that's really the key in CMBS that makes it difficult too.
Interesting. Maybe at the end of the show here, it sounds like you have a unique perspective on the market and how it really works. We can talk about market timing and what might happen in this market moving forward, because we all know something's happening. We just don't quite know when. But it sounds like you have a unique perspective.
If I knew that answer, I wouldn't share it on the podcast. I'd actually make a lot of money.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
think anybody knows when that is, but I definitely could give my thoughts for whatever it's worth. Yes.
Gotcha. So when we were talking before the show, we kind of came up with the conclusion, let's talk about investing in distressed commercial real estate that has a CMBS loan attached to it. Why, can you explain what makes that different than in just investing in normal distressed commercial real estate?
Sure. So let's say that there's an empty building that an investor drives down the street, sees an empty, used to be a Toys R Us. Let's just, use that. And this investor says, you know what, I'd like to buy that, right? So if it's not CMBS, you typically would do a little research, figure out who the bank is that owns it, because it's likely distressed if it's empty. And you'd approach the bank and make them a reasonable offer, and then maybe you can buy it, right?
Even if it's not listed, you do that for non-listed properties.
Yeah, you can. And I mean, it's all a matter of who owns it and do they want to sell. But yeah, that's what I think a lot of investors, do for distressed opportunities. Now, let's say that same empty building, you find out, let's say the bank owns it, right, in theory. So it's already foreclosed on. You want to buy that. So you look it up. And what you find as the bank is, XYZ Trust, Inc. And when you start digging, you realize it's a Wall Street, CMBS transaction. So your investors are now a bunch of bondholders that you can't reach. So now you don't know who to call. Let's say someone, tells you who to call. You call the servicer here and they make the call. Well, the servicer won't deal with you if you are someone who just wants to buy it. They will only deal with the current owner. So in CMBS, you have to have the current owner involved in order to make a transaction. I say have to. Of course, there are exceptions, and there could be someone listening that says, I did it once the other way, and that's possible. But the best way to do it is when you have someone who understands CMBS involved, like me as an example, a willing, interested current owner, and someone who wants to buy.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, this is going to be fun to really break down, because this is really new to me as well. A lot of the topics on here I've done myself, but this is a really exciting show for me. That's why I do these podcasts, to talk to very successful individuals that have new and unique ways to invest in real estate. Not necessarily even new, but just there's a whole other world out there. If you've been in real estate investing for a long time, that's why you're on shows like this. You educate yourself so you can find those little niches. So, Ann, we talked a little bit about breaking this down into 3 steps: finding the properties, working with the owner, and understanding the lender's motivation. So we briefly touched on it. It's funny you mentioned Toys R Us, because on my drive into work, there is actually an empty Toys R Us. There's probably a lot of empty Toys R Us's, which is why you used that example. Having a 2-year-old, it kind of sucks, but
Yes.
Let's talk about finding these properties. You either find a commercial property that also has this CMBS loan on it, so you can work out a more creative deal.
Right. Well, what I find is we deal with investors that want to participate or invest in commercial real estate. And often what they'll do is they'll tell me, for instance, you might say, I'm looking for, as an example, empty, I'm looking for distressed student housing around a university. I don't know, make it up, across the nation. And because CMBS is publicly traded information, the information is really easy to gather if you have access to the systems that that you get the data from. So I then could run a report, for instance, and say, okay, here are all the distressed student housing projects around universities that have CMBS debt, and I also have a lot of information on them. And so I can share with the potential investor what properties are even in the category of what they might want to invest in. Then they can select from the list, I want these two, and then we find the owner and then try to make a deal. So
when we talk about these systems, are these it's publicly traded information because these are different types of owners? They're publicly held owners, but what type of systems are you talking about using there?
Well, yeah, so all of the data on a CMBS loan is all governed by Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, because if you and I both invested in the same pool of loans, we'd want to make sure we both had access to the same information. So it's highly restrictive and highly programmatic and systematic and all that. There have been a few companies early in our CMBS career that created a business model out of that fact, and they're called, everybody pretty much has heard of TREP, Morningstar, Bloomberg. So those are the types of systems I mean. You subscribe to them, and then you have access to all of the CMBS data by loan, by property, and all that.
Oh, great. Okay, yeah. Great. Yeah, those are systems kind of way outside the normal residential fix and flip market. So thanks for sharing those with us. Even the things you mentioned are very, is news to me. Mm-hmm. So you're finding them using this software that's available. Now you have to work with the owner. So earlier you said, is the servicer the owner, or who is the owner? Because I got a little confused there.
Yeah. So the owner, let's say for instance, I'll use us as an example. So let's say I owned the Toys R Us, and I'm with you that I hate that they all closed, but I owned the Toys R Us, and I heard that Toys R Us, filed bankruptcy and is leaving my space, and I kept the loan current for a while, because I wanted to be a good borrower, and eventually I thought, oh, forget it, I can't do it anymore. I'm kind of done. So I'm actually okay with handing the property back to the lender because I'm done with it.
Yeah.
But if you, for instance, were looking for those at the right price, you might be all energized about buying it. So the key is to find a willing participant in a current owner and an interested buyer, and you try to make a deal then with the lender, which we'll talk about next. But
exactly. So not much different than a lot of our investors that are on the line. They might deal in pre-foreclosures.
Yeah.
So people that are in foreclosure, you contact them and you say, hey, listen, I know you don't want this house, but I do. And you kind of start working a deal with the individual.
Exactly the same. That's exactly right.
Perfect.
Only this is commercial real estate instead of single family, but yes, pre-foreclosure. Yes.
Gotcha. So is there anything in working with the owner when you're pitching these owners? I would imagine you wouldn't just say, hey, I'm going to assume your loan. You'd probably want to do some sort of a modification to the terms of the loan or something along those lines. I know we'll talk about that in a second, but the initial conversation with the owner, what is that typically like?
Mm-hmm. Great question. So if you really have to figure out what would motivate the current owner to even work with you, because right now he can pretty much mail the keys. I mean, that used to be an expression in my generation, but you can mail the keys to the servicer and say, here you go, I'm done. I don't want to own it anymore. So you have to figure out what does that negatively do to the borrower, to the current owner? Do they have tax consequences if they do that? Do they lose money? Would they be motivated to get a walkaway fee? So you kind of have to dig deep and figure out what would motivate a current owner to have any interest in even spending 5 minutes to talk about someone else buying it, So yeah, you're exactly right. You got to figure out the motivations and the impact of this hand back of the property to the current owner, and then figure out a way to make that work.
Yeah. Now, and in the commercial world, if someone defaults, is that going to go against their personal credit?
No, because these are all we said commercial world. I should be careful. For CMBS world, right, where it's securitized, you got Wall Street investors. They're all it's called single purpose entities. So I always set up a AHSPE, single purpose entity, for this property only. And so it's really hard to find me, number one. But number two, all I have is that property that's the CMBS trust is at risk for. So it's a non-recourse loan, meaning if I'm done, all they get, or I default, all they get is the property. They can't come after me personally. So not only does it not affect personal credit, but it also doesn't come the money doesn't, people can't come against you for personal judgment or anything unless you've done really horrible, egregious, they call bad boy events. But unless you do something very fraudulently, their only collateral is the property.
So and I asked that question because their motivation isn't to save their credit.
No.
Right. So that's in the pre-foreclosure world, that's a huge motivational factor there.
Yeah.
So you have to find that financial motivation for them to want to work with you. Before we get into the next step, and you have a book about this whole topic, don't you?
Yeah, I actually am very proud of that because I just recently finished something I've been wanting to do my whole career, and it just got published a few months ago, but it's CMBS 911. And what I really talk about there is I equate if I were the owner and Toys R Us announced they're filing bankruptcy and moving out, I would feel all of a sudden that day like I had just been in a car accident, like, oh no, what do I do next? So I equate that if you're a commercial real estate owner, I equate it to what happens if you got into a car accident. You call 911, they send an ambulance. Well, what does that all feel like on the commercial real estate CMBS world to you? So it walks a borrower all through what happens after that event and what are my options and what can I do, and
Yeah, all the questions. Yeah. Exactly. No, that's fantastic. And at exactlyhow.com, we'll go ahead and have links to Anne's book, anything else that any other ways that she wants to allow you guys to contact her will be found right at Exactly How. All the show notes, everything. I know there's a lot you're going to be taking in here, but I want to make sure you can review it. So we'll make sure to have it all at exactlyhow.com. And we have to announce the winner of the software. So this individual went to exactlyhow.com. They threw their name in the hat. Now they're going to have a piece of software that points to all of the best distressed single family properties in any area across the United States. It's a $3,000 software that you're going to get for free. And the winner this week is Christine Pereira. Christine, congratulations. Thank you so much for being a listener. We'll get in touch with you and get you all set up. All right. And now let's talk about understanding the motivations of the lender and how that plays a role.
So the fact that it's non-recourse, that's actually, you got to hold that thought when we talk about the lender. So remember in CMBS, the lender is not one person, but it's a whole bunch of bondholders. So there are varied motivations of the lenders because everyone has a different opinion probably about what they want to do. So at the end of the day, the options they have, if you're an investor and you're a bondholder in CMBS, is you can either get the property back, or you can work out a deal with the owner or buyer otherwise, right? So on the empty Toys R Us, as an example, if I'm the lender or the CMBS investors, I have to take into consideration how much I could sell that for empty. Let's say it's $1, right? And you come by as a potential investor and want to buy the empty building and the property, and you offer me $1.50, I'm motivated to do something with you. So it's all about what is the value today if you hand the property back, and what are you offering me? So even though there are good off-market opportunities for investors of distressed real estate in CMBS, they execute at about market value. So it's not like you can walk in and buy a distressed commercial real estate property in CMBS for 10 cents on the dollar for value. You have to pay pretty much 100 cents on the dollar, but it's off market. Does that make sense? Once it gets foreclosed and the lender or the bondholders own it, they sell it off through the open market. They hire a broker and list it and sell it, and highest bidder wins. So the best opportunities are pre-foreclosure and off market here. Yeah,
pre-MLS. Once people start bidding on it, there's no telling what's going to happen.
That's right. There's always some rogue bidder out there.
So this isn't really like a short sale. You're not going to the lender saying, listen, here's, like you said, 10 cents on the dollar. I'll buy it for you now before you have to go through all the process. they're not necessarily lining up to take less than it's owed.
No, actually, I'm sorry. So it is a short sale, and,
Okay.
and they're going to, yeah. So in most of these cases, like if you had this empty Toys R Us, the difference is they may owe 10 million, property value empty is, 5, or pick a number. They'll settle at 5, but there is debt written off. So it is like a short sale. It's just that
what you said that was really important is the value of the property being empty.
yes. Yeah. As it's.
Yeah. A commercial property, for all the real estate, residential guys, a commercial property that is fully booked out, leased, is worth a lot. It's worth what the leases amount to. But when it's empty, it's not worth much.
Right. Or partially empty. No, a lot of the best deals right now for investors, I think, on distressed real estate can even come in the mall areas, right? So if you think of malls, so it's not, maybe not completely empty. It's not a dead mall in air quotes, but it's certainly suffering. And those are where likely the debt is greater than the current value today as is. And those are where the opportunities lie.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is there any specific area around the United States that you're seeing the most success in?
No, actually not. Our CMBS and commercial real estate, I think, is more driven by property type than location. I mean, location.
Yeah, you're right.
Of course, too, but retail really is suffering. As everyone can tell in the whole market, right? Retail suffering. So the best deals are really retail. Sometimes student housing. There's a little bit of overbuilding in them, and those are locations. But retail, I think, is the biggest product right now for opportunity.
Yeah. So you find these retail buildings, but then what do you do with them after you have them? If retail is not working, you're not just going to try to put more retail in there. Are you changing the zoning? Is every property a little bit different?
You need to have another person on the podcast for that answer.
Yeah,
so that's not my expertise. And I assume if you're an investor and you want to buy that property, you probably have that in mind. But yeah, I've seen lots of things being done to the properties as much as, I've seen some people using empty single retail, like for churches. You see the malls being turned into lifestyle centers and entertainment places, but I'm not an expert in that. So I'm just telling you what I see.
Yeah. But getting creative. It seems like people are coming to you saying, hey, I'm looking for this. They already know what they want to do with it.
Yes.
And then you use your data, because data is always an advantage, and your know-how in the CMBS space to negotiate the deal and just kind of put it together.
Yeah, that's correct. Connect all the parts. That's exactly right. Yeah.
So do you have to have a license to do what you're doing?
No.
Would you consider this similar to wholesaling? Essentially, you're selling a contract, or what is the term there that's really happening on your transaction?
Yeah.
Being the middleman, because you're kind of the middleman, the middlewoman.
That's the key. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm not selling anything. I'm not buying anything. I'm not giving advice to either party about what to buy or what not to buy. I'm actually a connector. I'm an advocate. Really, my role here at my company, First Service Solutions, is we serve as an advocate for the owners of commercial real estate that have CMBS debt. So what I'm ultimately trying to find is a good solution for them. Now, often that leads to connecting them to a good investor that wants their distressed property that they don't want anymore. But so I'm just offering a connection. I'm a connector, a referral source, advocate. Yeah.
It just all came together. It's genius. Yeah. Your book, the way that you kind of position your book in helping the borrower, and then they reach out to you, and now you have a good network of investors out there that can help solve their problem.
Yes.
Way back in the day when I was first started in pre-foreclosure, I wrote a whole guide on what to do once you're in pre-foreclosure. What are your options? And people use it as an educational resource. You've just taken that to a whole new level. What are like the deal sizes that you usually focus on?
Well, let me just also, I'll answer your question, but the CMBS 911 book does a lot of what you said your pre-foreclosure book did.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing, only for CMBS only. Transaction size. Well, literally in these files behind me, I've got some that are 5 million and I've got some that are 100 million. So,
gotcha.
And I know that that's not a very good answer, but that's just really what it is. And it's all across the nation, and it's every property type, so we pretty much deal with, any borrower that feels like it's beneficial for them to have someone help guide them on what their options are, which I think everyone should have, those are the ones that come to us. So.
Great. And then as far as your fees when you do it, is it all kind of negotiated? Is there a standard on $100 million deal, or how does that all? How do you figure out how much to charge for what you do?
Yeah. The answer is some part of our process is standard. So if it's an assumption, someone's buying a property and they're assuming the existing debt, those are flat fees because it's a process and we got that all down. But for the most part, I have a free consultation call. So any investor, any borrower, anybody that wants to have this kind of call with me only on their property and their situation, I do that. And then as a result of that, our kind of consultation call, I figure out what kind of pricing makes sense based on the situation. Like empty Toys R Us, the last thing they'd want to do is incur additional monthly expenses because there's already no income coming in. So, I try to build in what's going on with the property to how I would help them solve the situation. So.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the last podcast we just did was very, very basic. It was just on wholesaling real estate. But at the end of the day, the individual is just a real estate problem solver. Yeah. Trying to figure out how to match needs with resources and relationships that you're able to bring to the table. So it's a really interesting space. Would you consider it a crowded space, or you pretty much carved out a niche and you're running?
Well, I don't know if it's crowded. There's plenty of people out there that do portions of what I do. What makes me unique, now I really mean this, is that I've spent my whole career in the servicing shop. So I'm not giving feedback or advice to owners based on what I've learned over the past few years, but I'm basing it on the 35 years I spent being on the other side, being in the chair. So it's almost like if you're going to do your taxes and you had the ability to hire a former IRS agent that, they could tell you, oh, if you do this here, that no one's going to check this, or that's what I offer. And so there's no one else in the market that I've found. Maybe one other person, I would tell you, one other company that has that kind of experience. So,
well, that's great. It's probably plays a big role in why you've been so successful, asking the right questions.
Yeah, asking questions, because we don't know I loved how you started it out, but just knowing that we don't know everything and not being afraid to ask questions is the key to learning all this stuff. Yeah. Well,
let's have a little fun here and go over the rapid fire section of the podcast here. So I'm just going to ask you a question, and the first thing that pops to your mind. On a scale of 1 to 10, how strict were your parents?
8.
Get up early or stay up late?
Early.
How many hours of sleep do you get?
10.
Favorite book?
Or most recent.
Or most recent book you've read?
Yeah, I'm going to say Jesus Calling. That's my favorite book. Yeah.
If you could be any superhero, who would it be?
Oh gosh. Ask me a different one. I'm going to pass on that one.
All right. Something everyone should do less of.
Talk.
Something everyone should do more of.
Listen.
Will people visit Mars in your lifetime?
No. No.
And Bitcoin, bang or bust?
Bang, but also not in my lifetime, I don't think.
Yeah. All right, Ann, thank you so very much for sharing your very unique and well-crafted expertise with us. Thank you so much for getting on the show.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Yeah, and for everyone who is still here, you made it to the end of the podcast. Congratulations. Only about 30% of people get to the end of any podcast, and you stayed, which means you finish what you start. You enjoy what we're doing. All I ask is that you like, share, thumbs up, tag someone, at least leave a comment here on what you thought. We work really hard to pull these amazing guests in and share this fabulous free information with you, and we really thrive off your interactions. So go ahead and let us know what you thought. We have some phenomenal episodes coming up. You can visit exactlyhow.com to see the full archive and what we've done and what we have coming up. And I look forward to talking with you on the next show. Bye-bye.
The Connected Investors app connects you with investors, notifies you of available properties, helps locate cash buyers, and secure private funding to close deals. Set up in seconds to become a member of the Connected Investors social network. Now you can scroll through your main feed to find cash buyers, see investment properties not available to the general public, and network with investors by adding your own comments to a thread to keep the conversation going. The Control Center is your connection to add properties to sell, start new discussions, connect with local investors, and even find private funding. The Notifications tab will keep you alerted to new investment properties and offers. You'll also find new friend requests to connect directly with the community to build your network. From the property marketplace, you'll be able to find, favorite, and make offers on investment properties. Download Connected Investors today to find, figure, fund, and flip investment properties on the go.